life expectancy insurance, a foreign concept to many in the past, but recently many of the insurance companies have adopted this philosophy. What is it? Well, understand, when you buy a life insurance policy, you are buying that policy theoretically to last forever because you want to make sure that you don't outlive the insurance. Now, in the past, many people bought whole life insurance policies, and they were excellent because there was a certain structure to them. You pay your premium, money goes into a cash value by a way of a dividend, and there is a death benefit, and it's all guaranteed. Voila, you pass away, a death benefit is paid out. But then newer types of insurance came out, primarily universal life. And this was a flexible premium policy that allowed you to determine how you want to structure your policy. But still, many people bought these policies by paying the premium necessary to make that policy last forever. The problem had occurred, as I discussed during the segment on reviewing your insurance policy, that interest rates came down and all of a sudden the policies were not lasting as long as they were supposed to. Well, this created a new idea for us. You see, with the advent now of guaranteed universal life, that's right, you can now buy insurance policies at the lowest prices that are absolutely guaranteed, based, of course, on the strength of that insurance company. But no longer do you have to worry what effect an interest rate may have or a change in mortality charges, the cost of the insurance, will have on your policy. So what idea that gave us was to create life expectancy. So what does it mean? Well, let's say, for example, in fact, I'll give you a story. A couple that were 75 and 70 years of age buying $10 million of insurance had to pay $190,000 a year for that policy to last forever. But they said, we're not lasting forever. So I showed them how they could create a structure to last in accordance with what they were comfortable. They said, quite honestly, nobody in our family has ever made it past 88 years of age. So I said to them, why don't we do a structure of 20 years? Now, 20 years brought them to the ages of 95 and 90, which they said they're more than comfortable with. Well, do you know what it did to that premium? It reduced their premium from $190,000 a year to $85,000 a year. Now, with that particular insurance company, the numbers were quite dramatic, and not all insurance companies will have that same type of reaction to that change in duration. But nevertheless, this one did. Well, understand that that's a savings of $105,000 a year. Over 20 years, that's $2.1 million. And with interest that you can make on that money, let's call it $3 million. So the gentleman says to me, what you're telling me, Howard, is we're going to spend $85,000 a year over 20 years. That's $1.7 million. If we paid the original $190,000, well, over 20 years, we would have paid $3.8 million. That's a tremendous savings. Now, he said, but let me ask you this. What happens? What happens if one of us are still alive? God willing, in 20 years. I said, well, let me answer you with this question. When you drive your car more than 250 or 300 miles and you run out of gasoline, what do? Do you throw the car away or do you fill it up with more gas? And what does it take to buy the gas? It takes money. Well, guess what? A life insurance policy is no different. When it runs out 20 years from now, your gasoline, it's premiums. You take that money and you pay the insurance company. There's no new exam. There's no new underwriting. The policy will continue as long as you pay the appropriate number. He says to me, won't that be expensive? Well, absolutely. In fact, the policy to continue will be approximately $600,000 to $800,000 a year. He said, yes, but Howard, I'm not concerned because the truth of the matter is we can't afford it, number one. Number two, if we're fortunate to be alive at 95 and 90, my children are going to be in their 60s, close to 70. Hopefully they've got money by then. I don't believe we'll be spending money like we do today, and therefore, one way or the other, we'll figure out how to pay. But let me ask you this. What's the worst case scenario? I said, well, you know the answer. If you don't continue the policy, I guess you will have thrown away $85,000 a year for 20 years. That's $1.7 million. He said, but if, God forbid, we pass away, we get $10 million. That's correct. He said, well, I think that's a good bet. I said, forget whether it's a good bet or not. It comes down to economics. Do you want to lay out $190,000 a year or $85,000? Plus one additional thing. Assuming there is a life settlement industry 20 years from now, and who knows what will exist at that time, but assuming there's a very good possibility that you might be able to sell that policy if you no longer want to continue it. And if you can, wouldn't you be thrilled if you were able to sell $10 million for 17%, $1.7 million? That's exactly what you would have put in. But quite honestly, being in your 90s, the chances of 20, 25, or even 30% are probably greater. But we don't have to focus on that number. Just know that there may be an exit strategy, but you've done a tremendous job of creating a huge amount of insurance at the lowest possible cost that fit the parameters you wanted. Now understand, there's nothing sacred about 20 years. That's what this couple wanted. Your life expectancy age may be 15 years. Maybe you wanted to go to 85. Maybe you wanted to go to age 92. That is up to you. Let us show you how we can create a life expectancy policy for you while including the cost of that policy in the future to make sure it lasts well beyond you do.